going to go off mic if you can hear us. I am prepared, Steve. Like at any point you go, we'll do right. Hi Caroline.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well.
How's Gent treating you?
Well, we only arrived last evening, but it's so beautiful. What a pretty city.
It's nice. Well,
do you all live in Gent? Are you all from Gent?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
Do you call you Gentonians? Or what would you be?
From Gent.
Just from
Just
Gent.
from
Yes.
Gent.
Oh, it's lovely to see you.
Yeah.
You should. I'm going to say you haven't got seats or anything, have you?
They don't want to look after you guys.
Oh
That's
no!
it.
Maybe seats are coming later. Maybe for the, maybe they are.
No, they won't be. You could sit on the floor, but then you
don't
couldn't
sit
see
on
us.
the floor. No.
I believe it's key.
So you could join us up here. But
I mean, yeah, we do it. If anyone wants to take the chairs,
yeah, you're more than welcome.
yeah.
Yeah,
Come on up.
you could get
If everybody
yes,
take care of behind.
Yes, everyone get on stairs.
Yes, the more the merrier. Why not?
We'll make it like story time.
Yes, oh, I love it.
There are stairs around the side. If anyone wants to come in.
That's so cool.
Come on, guys. We're all getting on the stage.
We're all just sitting on the stage. If you want to come up, you're more than welcome. There are stairs actually. So yes,
Lovely.
so it's my first time in Gent.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Have you been to Belgium before then?
Yes, I've been to Belgium.
Oh, nice. It's
Nice buns.
they are. I nice buns.
Sorry.
So
we
it's
have them in England, so Belgian buns. So.
yeah, we do. We basically come here and then take all your
Take
chocolate
your
back.
buns.
Yeah, and your buns.
And your fries with mayonnaise, which I love.
Oh yes.
That's such a good custom, isn't it?
Everywhere in Belgium. Yes.
I'm already thinking about lunchtime
Are
because
you?
I do 3 of these a year, and every time I go, who am I going to get to speak to, and what am I going to eat?
Oh.
Pretty much my whole thing. So I feel like we should all just. It feels like a sort of AA meeting. Hello, I'm Matthew, and I have a problem with pop culture.
Or a little bit of a happening, as they used to say. Well, they did in the 60s, whatever that meant, I don't know. But it feels very nice, it feels very comfortable.
Maybe, of course, Caroline is known for mostly for James Bond and her Hammer movies part.
Oh, we will be getting onto those, don't you worry.
Maybe if you can tell us a little bit about those things, or maybe some of us have questions.
Yeah, well, pretty much exactly what we're going to do. We'll let you all have questions. I just thought we'd get nice and comfy first.
We will.
Let's do the professional stuff then.
Right, I'll let you do the professional stuff.
It's my one job today.
I'm going to say I'm very impressed so far.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to blush. Caroline, there's about a million places I could start with your career. I'm going to start with my favourite thing because you're part of the Hammer family.
Oh, you're too young for Hammer.
Never too young. I grew up obsessed with Hammer films.
Really?
Yeah, from a very early age I got into Hammer and just sort of. They used to be on Channel 4.
They did.
Very late at night, which is obviously an English channel, and I got into a few, and from there used to get my mum and dad to take me to the video shop and used
Did you?
I love horror, absolutely obsessed with horror.
I've done a few horror.
Yeah, you've done
horror films,
1 or 2 on the old.
One or two that I would care to forget, but no, working with Hammer was amazing.
It's such a legacy, though.
It is such a legacy. It's a bit like Bond. It's an English kind of institution. They were done very cheaply with the small budgets, and by today's budget, I mean it would one day filming would be a whole 5-week shoot of Hammer. But you had some wonderful actors, Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, and I did 2 Hammer films. Dracula AD 72, which we shot in 71, and Captain Cronus Vampire Hunter with Horst Janssen, a German actor. And they were, I think, for me, it was all about teamwork. It's like any job. If you're lucky enough to enjoy your job and be with a team that you can trust and be supportive of and supports you, then it's a kind of a win-win. And working with those people, with Christopher, that was a life changer for me because he
I
was.
couldn't even imagine.
I'd been in films before. I'd kind of wandered through and doing. I started very young. I started at 16, 17, and I did extra work, and I worked, and it didn't become my passion until I worked with Christopher Lee, till I was bitten on the neck by Christopher, and then it totally became my passion because he was so good. As he was Dracula to me, and as my character.
He's my Dracula.
I mean,
He's my Dracula.
He's your Dracula, but he is your Dracula. He's everybody's Dracula.
Yes, it's my Dracula.
Is it your Dracula?
I was very scared of him when I was a child.
He was. I mean, because it's the whole demeanour he had. It was, and I'd asked as a young actress, and it was very cheeky of me, but I said, "Can I not see him?" I didn't want to see Christopher coming in as Dracula. I said, I don't really want to see him until we do the scene. Because we'd been around talking in his normal clothes, jeans, and chatting on the set. And I'd been doing knitting, and he watched, and he'd talk about Transylvania and interesting things. So our director, Alan Gibson, said, no, if you don't want to see him, you won't see him till he appears. So when he appears, oh my gosh, I was that young girl, Laura Bellows, and the reactions from him and myself, I think I felt it really, really worked because he was everything that was terrifying to me, and I was going to say erotic to a certain degree. You know what I mean?
Oh, he was erotic. You don't have to sugarcoat it.
I don't know if erotic's the right. I'm trying to search for the word.
There's a magnetism.
Yes,
to him,
yes, this kind of animal thing that he had when he came as Dracula. I thought, wow, yes, bite my neck, do it. But I had to put up a little fight as Laura Bellows first, but then she succumbed. So yes, that was the turning point in my acting career. I realised that had become my passion. So then I started to study more and do more. So Hammer films were wonderful.
Oh yeah, I'm in awe. But again, you've already mentioned one of the other big franchises we'll get to, but you're also in one of my favourite films from growing up as well. You're in Sinbad.
Oh, Sinbad.
And I am obsessed. Because I'm obsessed with claymation. And so
really?
there's just a beautiful era of films like Sinbad and Clash of the Titans and all those.
Yes, Jason and the
Argonauts. And again, it was sort of for me as a kid, it was horror in the evening and then afternoons with sort of all those big adventures and stuff like that.
They were kind of, as Ray Harryhausen would say, they're fairy tales. They're magical fairy tales, and that's how he wanted it to be, with a little fear, but not too much, so it would include all the family. And I think he created the most amazing creatures.
They're still incredible, yeah.
They are.
The designs on them are just something else. Like I could really nerd out. I know you guys can nerd out as well, but I really could get into so much detail about how.
I mean, and the thing is with Ray, he did them. He made the creatures. What he did, he had the storyboards. This was for our Golden Voyage of Sinbad. He'd show you these wonderful storyboards of how he wanted it to be. So he'd do these beautiful drawings of his creature and how we would be in the scene. So before we shot the scene, which obviously we were working with nothing. There was nothing. There was no centaur. There was no Kali, there were none of the creatures there. So he showed us this, he said, now this is what you're going to be up against. And
how big were they? Like the actual creatures?
Well, the miniatures, the miniatures were this big, and I was this big. But when they were blown up, not blown up, when they were filmed, they were meant to be 16, 17 feet high. So therefore, when we came to do the shots with nothing there, but our imagination imagining the creatures, he had this big stick. Ray had this and he'd come in and he'd direct these scenes. So he had this big stick, and on the end of ours he'd draw a big eye and he'd pin it onto the end of this massive stick, and that would be my eye line. So I'd follow the eye line for my centaur, and this is how he did it. He put it on after.
They
He did
still
it all
essentially
after.
do that though. I mean, I know it's green screen, but they still
Green
have.
screen, yes.
Yeah, I did a Days Extreme where I was supposed to be following Freddie Mercury, and it's exactly that. It was just a balloon on a stick.
Yeah,
it's exactly
they
the
still
same
do it.
technique. Yeah, exactly the same.
But then the thing with Ray was that having done that, he'd build the maquettes and the creatures around and put the fur on, and in our case he modelled the centaur on David Bowie, because it was in
Nice.
73 we did it, and David Bowie had that look with the
I never
orange
knew
spiky.
that.
Yes, no, Ray says that himself. He said, I took inspiration from David Bowie. so David Bowie was his thing.
David Bowie's the centaur.
Yes, something like that. But he
could-
only had one eye. The centaur. So yes, he did that, but it was one man. It was just Ray doing the whole thing. It took him a year to do the creatures after and film it stop motion.
I mean, that's
Bit by
still
bit,
a
moving.
quick turnaround.
A year, I suppose it is, for so much
Stop
every
motion.
day.
Yeah, I mean they think they take longer with stop motion now because
Yeah, actually, I think they do. But then there's so many people, technicians.
Yeah.
With him, it was one man.
Yeah, just probably in a
doing
little
it
room.
In a
just-
little room. And I remember when Ray was 90, he died, 5 years ago now, but he was 90 and he was given a BAFTA in London. And they had, I mean, all the royalty from Spielberg to Tim Burton to George Lucas to Dante to everybody. And Peter Jackson came out in the end and gave him the BAFTA. But Steven Spielberg said that without Ray, there would be no Star Wars.
Yeah.
He was the inspiration, the Godfather. I always call him the Godfather. But he was the most lovely, modest, sweet man. And I'm a trustee on their foundation, because they're restoring. They've done plastic surgery on my little character. They've really done. They've got her a new wig and new everything. I
She's
think
had work done.
She's had a lot of work done. Yeah, she really has. She looks not too bad now. Yeah, it's quite funny.
Did you? This is one of my favourite questions, especially someone like yourself who's been on a lot of sets where you could get something interesting. Have you got anything at home that you've stolen or taken from set? Because most people steal. Let's.
I was given. I was given.
Given.
No. I was given Charlie and Johnny Depp's lollipop thing. He's from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I had to buy my boots from The Spy Who Loved Me.
What?
You had to buy things, unless you're, big, obviously.
When after the shoot, straight after.
Knockdown prize, but yes, you can have them because they're especially made for my feet. Sorry, nobody else is going to have the same. Well, they are, but you know what I mean. So yeah, you have to buy things.
That's ridiculous. I'd be like, give me my shoes.
Yes, well, I'm sure you can if you're whoever you are. But no, you buy things. No, I haven't really got anything. No, I've got Raquel Welch's bone. I was given from 1 million years BC. I did a photo shoot, and the photographer said, "Oh, keep this." so I've got her wonderful big bone that she wore, that she had. Yes, so I have that Raquel Welch's bone. My claim to fame. But really, you had to buy stuff. It was always you had to buy.
But I guess it's a lot of those films, especially like the way Sinbad was made and Hammer, they were still coming out of that sort of studio system method.
Very, very much so. Yeah, but it was very.
It's a factory, wasn't it?
It was. Well, you say it's a factory. It was a factory. They had to. They were only as good as your last film, I suppose, for the filmmakers. But it was also very, very family. It wasn't about the money. It was never about the money when I was, certainly wasn't about the money. I mean, you got paid very, very little. But you did it because you wanted to do it. It was something, I think, all the cast and crew, it was an understood thing, and you worked long hours. And it's nothing like today, where you have these multi-million pound film or dollar films, and they get all sorts. And we got no royalties as such. You've got a buyout.
Oh, really?
You've got a buyout fee, which was not a lot, and that was it. You get no royalties.
No repeats, nothing
Not like in America. I think they get the SAG the Screen Actors Guild, you get all your residuals, and now...
I remember watching an interview with the kid from Jaws who's on the Lilo.
Yeah.
And as an adult, he said, just now and then I get a little... It still comes as a check through his door, and he just gets like...
few dollars.
Yeah, a few dollars, but because it's shown
but he
so
still
much.
Gets it. That's the thing.
It's very different.
We didn't. I think it's different now with
it's
British
all
actors'
changed.
equity. I think they said no, we have to be alongside the Americans, otherwise.
Yeah.
It's a different way.
Yes, it's probably after the 80s they started to standardise the industry because of
they had to. They had
after
to,
the
really.
unions got powerful, the Actors Guild and all that went, we need to reform.
Well, they had to really, because it's kind of not fair.
Because
you got minimum wage when you did it, and then nothing really after.
And in film, so many people try not to give you what you're owed.
I know. Yes, you look as if you know. Do you? Are you involved in films?
I sometimes, but more behind the screen. But I did film school basically as a writer.
So you know what it's about.
Unfortunately,
I mean, you have to do it.
Well.
Really, it has to be your passion.
Yeah.
It has to, because you're certainly not in it necessarily for the fame or the money.
Or the early days.
Or the early days, late nights. Yeah. But it's something I love. We've just done a film actually in Texas. We shot based on Hammer. It's a young American Texan director. He's 24. He was 24 a couple of days ago. Called Josh Kennedy, and it's a reboot of The House of the Gorgon.
Oh wow!
So myself and Martine Beswick, who's also in the Bond films, and she played. Do you know? You've heard of Martine Beswick? Dr. Jekyll and Sister. She was in Thunderball. Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. She was a wonderful Sister Hyde. She was very naughty in that, and she's my best friend. So we were the Gorgons.
Oh, amazing!
So we did that. My oldest daughter was the ingenue. She was the lead in the film.
Oh, amazing!
She played the Barbara Shelley part. So yeah.
When's that out?
Well, it's fairly soon. I think they're going to show it. I believe in. I think they wanted to show it before Christmas in London, and it's already got a. I don't know.
Because that's August,
but it's
isn't it?
not,
Yeah.
I looked at it. We saw a very, very rough cut. It needs a lot of balancing and colour balancing and sounding. I looked at it. It's not horror. It's not horror. It's gothic fairy tale.
Oh.
This is how I see it. It's gothic. It's a homage to Hammer, but it's gothic fairy tale.
It's interesting because gothic fairy tale comes around about every 20 years.
Yeah.
70s, 90s.
I don't know if it intended to be, but there's no blood. There's a suggestion. There's no sexual references particularly. But it's an interesting story, and he's done a really good job on it. And Veronica Carlson's in it too.
Amazing.
So the performances, and Christopher Neame, who was in Dracula AD, he played Johnny Alucard. And so it's a really interesting cast. So we'll see anyway, see what happens.
Right.
Does anybody?
I was going to say we can do questions. I assume someone will ask you about Bond whilst we go around. And I look straight to you, just given how quick you were on that Thunderball knowledge.
Yes, you were quick.
Yeah.
You know your
I am
Bond.
a huge Bond fan.
Are you? Yeah.
Favourite? Bearing in mind.
It doesn't matter. I've never
I love me.
yes, you're being diplomatic.
What's your favourite Bond?
I like Dr. No. Yeah, he was the first, and it
Yeah.
was just, and nobody thought it was going to do anything. It was made on a tiny budget, but boy, oh boy, it was good. The combination of him and Ursula. I mean, Ursula is the ultimate. Apart from
Jamaica,
Judi
it's
Dench
beautiful.
and Jamaica. So yeah, it's a win-win. I like that. That would be a good one for me. And ours second, of course.
I guess we can all ask questions. I'll go around. Questions? If you have,
But
if
you
you
don't
don't have
have
one,
to,
yeah,
you
you don't
don't
have to.
have
It's not compulsory.
I
guys.
don't
Putting me on the
mind.
spot.
Yeah, you can think about
Yeah, you
it.
can think. Does anyone have one?
But maybe you worked with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
I
And
did.
you also worked a little bit with Vincent Price.
I did.
How was that? Because you had a small credited program?
Yes, it was. And I was under contract to Hammer Films to do the 2 films, and they didn't want my name up. So I said, I don't mind. I just want to watch him work. And
You played his
I played his dead wife. One of my most difficult parts.
Here's a quote.
The story goes that Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and also Vincent Price were very big gentlemen and very friendly.
They were, all of them.
They were good friends.
They were all different, chalk and cheese, all different men, but they got on so well. They had a mutual respect for each other's talent, and they really got on well. I know when we did the Dracula, Christopher and Peter would be off, and they'd have a chat, and it was a lovely atmosphere on set, to be on set with those men, because they kind of set the bar. I think if the main actors they set the bar, and everybody around them, and it's like Roger Moore, he was wonderful with his crew. Everybody just loved him because he was just such a gentleman, funny, slightly twinkly and naughty, but delightful at the same time.
In what sense was he naughty?
Well, he used to tell one-liners that were quite, you'd think, oh, that's a bit strong for 8:30 in the morning. But that made the crew, made everybody relax, and I loved it. He was very giving as an actor, Roger, because very often the big main actors don't stand there for their off lines.
I find that insane.
I too, because
they do
sure
your
you want the best
reaction,
out of your, but he was there, and he'd give back, and this is, to me, that's part of it. That's the whole part.
Yeah. Do you? It's filmed separately when you have.
Sometimes the reaction shot. I'm talking to you now, but maybe I go off and have a cup of tea, which would be incredibly rude, and you've still got to talk to a stick.
So this happens with big actors.
It can do. Actually, the bigger the actor, normally it doesn't, because they want it to look as good.
Okay.
So therefore, if they're clever, they are there.
And then the James Bond was.
Roger was there.
And the others as well. I mean, the other actors.
Yes, I think on the Bond. Well, I really had only interaction with him and Barbara. In that one, I didn't work with my lovely Richard. Sadly, I toured the whole of Europe with Richard Keogh. But no, you often find that the bigger the actor, the more, because they have nothing to prove. They're just wonderful, and they've got their, not only for their acting ability, but because they're usually very decent people, good people. I mean, you get the odd exception, I'm sure. But I've been very lucky with my men, with my leading men. I've been very lucky.
If you had to pick a favourite?
Oh, that's so difficult. I mean, that is very tricky. Roger would have to be in my top. Actually, all of them would have to be in a line. I have John Philip Law, Peter. Peter was wonderful. I did a film with him and Doug McClure called At the Earth's Core, and I worked with him every day for 6 weeks, and that was a joy. Watching the way he worked, his technique, and he'd do a lot of improvisation, which I love. And then I forgot. I did. No, I should let
Caroline.
Go on. I'm talking too much.
You're talking about a lot of high-end actors.
Yes.
But you also worked with David Hasselhoff. Would he be in the same line? Would he be in the same line?
I love David. It was David's first film.
Oh, really?
Yes, and he was very nervous. He'd just finished doing a soap opera in America, in LA. Oh, New York, I'm not sure. Anyway, he'd come over and he was very nervous. He said, this is my first film and I'm very excited, I'm very nervous. And we spent a lot of time together, David and I. We actually had food poisoning together too, I remember. Down in Barry, which is not together, but we weren't together at all. But
Barry in Wales?
No, Barry in Tropea, down in Italy.
I was going to say, that's like,
not Barry
for a minute there,
no.
What a weird place to film that.
We were in Italy, and one of our first scenes, and we'd eaten whatever we'd eaten, and the crew, we were all poorly, staying in this rather funny hotel. dubious hotel. And then we had the first scene, I had to be hanging upside down as Stella Star, and he had to come and rescue me with his sword. That was not good. Anyway, we did it, and he did it brilliantly. So I loved working with David. He was very funny to work with, and very, he looked so beautiful. He had his hair done, and he looked so beautiful. Forget all of us, but he looked gorgeous on camera. And he's a really good bloke. I like him very, very much. He's funny. He is. I see him occasionally.
He's having a real. He's done a lot of comedies recently.
He does. He's really good at comedy.
Yeah, he's really good at
and
it.
I think that was his forte. He was excellent at that.
Any other questions around the circle? Any confessions?
I was actually wondering what it's like to be, because you said like the Dr. No film was a very small budget one, and now we see James Bond production as huge blockbuster
massive
production.
I know.
I was wondering what it was like for you when you worked on James Bond.
On Spy.
How was it? What was it like? Was it big? Did you already know how big it was? Or
well, I'd obviously seen Bond films before, but I didn't realise how much the press machine would be working. When we first were announced, I remember we were announced in the Dorchester Hotel in London, which is a big, very beautiful hotel. And they had the press, all the international press. And I was invited along as well. So there was Roger, Kurt Jurgens, Richard Keel, Barbara Bach, and myself. And it was just, it was enormous. I've never seen so many press and so many questions. So I felt slightly overawed by that. And then we did the film, and then after they had what they call the press junket, which is you go and you do all these, which is wonderful. It's kind of fabulous in a way. And Cubby would set it up, and Richard Keel and I, we were the baddies, hench people. We'd go to all the European cities, and they'd show the film, and we'd talk, and we'd do pictures, and then we were flown my first time in New York. So it was a first for many things. So it was a big-ish budget, nothing like they have today, but it was called a big budget then. And I'd been used to working on Hammer films, which you made the Hammer film for £200,000, which is healthy, but still not a massive budget. I mean, but that was with all of it. That was the post-production, the pre-production. That was all of it, all the actors' fees. So, and Sinbad was not much bigger, I think, or maybe.
I thought Sinbad was quite a big budget, wasn't it?
But it made a lot of money for Columbia.
Yeah.
It was under $1 million.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, way under $1 million.
Oh, wow.
Pretty sure.
So I think of that as like a big, blockbuster adventure.
Yeah, you looked it. I mean, it was beautifully shot. We had a fantastic DP, cinematographer in Ted Moore. He was wonderful. He was an Oscar winner. So it looked very luscious. And that's the thing about... we were having a discussion last night. I went out. I was the only lady that went out with all the boys last night. We went to have a bite to eat because we'd just all arrived on the train. And we went out there and found a nice little place. And we were talking about budgets. The difference in making films when I did and now, and also the difference in working on film and on digital.
Yeah.
And it's a huge difference.
Digital, you don't have to think about, if we miss this, we've just spent all that money on... Could you just go, let's shoot again, we got so much
thing,
memory,
whereas film, I mean, and they were talking, it was Nick was saying, because he's worked on some big budget stuff and smaller budget stuff. But the difference is that they can come in and wander in and out in digital. It doesn't really matter.
They're obsessed with coverage now.
Yes. Whereas when we did it, you're lucky if you got 2 takes.
Yeah.
The sound stage had to be locked down and quiet as a mouse. Nothing could interfere because you had to get that 1 minute of film because time was money in those days. It was.
It's crazy when you hear people like Stanley Kubrick who did the way of shooting now, but on film.
But film to me is the medium. You just look at the difference. I mean, the films in the 60s, 70s,
they try and replicate it now, with grains and things like that.
Why don't they use film? Because we
money,
were
it's all
talking
money, isn't it?
when they say money, They say money, but one of the chaps who does the Yodas and the special, he said it's actually marginal. It's pretty much the same. Yes, it just doesn't understand why they don't. I don't know.
It's all very boring now, but I have a lot of friends who are editors, and they always talk about workflow, and that always comes into it. And
yes, I know. Yes. It's different. It was more immediate when we did it. It was more organic. All the effects were done practically.
Yeah.
When we did Dracula AD, when you see all the blood coming from there, it was done practically. We had one time to shoot it, one shot, and we had to get it right. Yeah. You rehearsed it a bit, but you couldn't rehearse the blood coming.
But that's why there's so many old practical effects that the reactions are great because
they're real.
Because you're like, oh.
Because they were saying, well, how did it look so real? I said, but it was real.
Yeah.
You know, when we did the thing with Peter Cushing and the fire shooting out, they said, oh, we'll use stand-ins. We've got stand-ins. And Peter and Doug McClure and myself looked at each other and said, we don't want stand-ins, we'll do it. And so we blocked it, we rehearsed where we were going to be, and suddenly these massive, great flamethrowers came. And boy, all the hair on was singed, and my hair was standing on end. It didn't get burned, but it was the most extraordinary, and the reactions were real. We just did one take.
Is it weird to have that moment where you're reacting realistically, but you also know you've got to act as well?
Character, yes.
So you can't go, oh fuck.
Yeah, no, there was nothing like that. Oh, no. No, yes, that would be because of PG.
Yeah.
No, that was
crazy.
So I like that. I like that immediacy. Some of the steampunk. I love that. It looks so great. Look at you all. You look wonderful.
Store. Get yourself kitted out.
I love the hats. I don't know what they do. Oh, yeah, can I try it? It's so. I have a very tiny head. It's
I have a tiny head.
I do. Do you have a tiny
Yeah,
head?
the hair's so deceptive.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. I love that. That's so good. Do you do them? Do you sell them, or did you just buy? You look wonderful. You all look wonderful. You ladies look with the hats and things. I love that.
Any more questions?
Any more questions? Yes.
If you wouldn't be an actress, what would your job be?
Artist. That's what I wanted to do. I would be both my daughters took fine art at uni. One's doing costume design and acting. She's the one that trained as acting. But I went to art school in Brighton, and I thought that was what I was going to do. I'm very, very dyslexic, so reading for me is a struggle, and spelling is even worse. But I thought art would be my thing. So I did Saturdays at art school in Brighton, and then there was a chap studying photography. He said, can I take some pictures, would you mind, for my portfolio? I said, that's fine. And I was 16 and a half, and so we did them, and then he sent them to, he asked my mother, he said, can I send these pictures to David Bailey, was a very big 60s photographer, David Bailey. Very cheeky man. Anyway, very cheeky man. I was so young. Anyway, he sent it off, and the picture and myself won the competition. So I got to work. We did a film together, David Bailey. It's his first film.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Black and white. All shot in black and white.
Classic photographer move.
Yes, clever. And the Rolling Stones were the producers of the film. It was called Gigi Passion. And it was made in '66.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a funny little film, strange little film, but really art was the one. But I wasn't very good at art. My youngest daughter is so good at art. She's just a natural artist. I wasn't great.
Do you still keep it up?
No, not really. Neither does she, unfortunately. Bless you. No. I love the music.
Yeah, I know.
What is the music?
They're just trying to time it with what you're saying, so now they're just giving you a crescendo.
Is that our music then?
No,
I was going to say, I thought you had me there. I thought that was very impressive.
I have a question. How did you get cast for the James Bond movie?
It was, I got cast because Cubby, I did a campaign in England called, it was when I did quite a lot of modelling, it was called Lamb's Navy Rum. and they did big billboards, big posters, and they put them all over the place. It was for men's dark rum, and in the posters I wore a wetsuit, you know, that you wear for diving, and they hosed me down, so I had the wet hair, and I had a knife strapped to my. I don't know why. Hey, not politically correct, but it was a strong image, I believe. Anyway, a cubby said, he used to travel up and down, and he said, I want to see that woman. You bring her. And I went and I met him. I found my agent, I met him, and we did a reading, and he said, I would love you to be, he asked me then and there if I would like to do the role. I said, well, I would go and discuss it with my agent. So I did. And at the same time, I was offered the role of Ursa.
I read this,
yes,
yeah.
I was offered Ursa and Superman. And I said to Dennis, the agent, I said, what do you think? He said, well, he said, we know about James Bond. He said, my preference would be Bond for you. And Sarah Douglas, has anybody met her? She is wonderful. She makes a fabulous Ursa.
Yeah, she reprised it in Supergirl, apparently.
Did she?
Apparently, yeah.
Oh my
I've not seen it, but
gosh.
yeah.
She ate the screen. I mean, I couldn't have done that. I would have been different, but she was perfect cast.
I only found out a few years ago that they filmed that for the first Superman, and then that became Superman 2.
Oh.
Yeah, so
because she did 3, didn't she? Which is amazing. But no, she's lovely and she's perfect. And so I got the nice little Naomi. I liked her. She was very cheeky.
How's it feel knowing that you're part of such a huge legacy, you know? Because you sort of hit it at that time when it was already kind of that.
I suppose it needed to be a good film, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know if the other one had done that well at the box office, so they needed to reprise. It needed to be
good,
so
big.
they put a lot of, it was
Man
a
with the
bigger
golden
budget
gun.
for them.
Man with the Golden Gun did
Yes,
perform.
no, apparently it didn't, but apparently you do know your
Please,
Bond.
yeah.
Apparently
I know my Bond.
they needed something, so they did. I think they cast it well. You know, they had Richard and Roger, and Roger loved was his favourite Bond.
Yeah,
He loved that.
he always
film.
said that.
Yeah, no, he was brilliant in that.
What
so.
Bond number was it for him?
It was his third.
It was his third.
Look at this! Have you met IMDb?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah, you're the one. Yes, it was his third. It was. And then Moonraker. Didn't like that as much. He didn't. It was good. He didn't.
It was also.
He said
It was also a big one, but.
it was big. But Spy had the music, he had Carly Simon, he had that amazing jump at the beginning, the ski jump. When we went to the premiere in Leicester Square, the Empire, no, Odeon, and it was royalty were there. I think it was Prince Charles was there, and when the jump came on, the music came. The whole audience stood up, you know, and they were clearing because you had the Union Jack flag and all, you know, it was just wonderful. It was a fabulous moment. I remember
I think it's this there with the motorcycle.
it was a good one.
So
And
good.
they had the premiere on 7/7/77. That's weird, isn't it? 7/7/77. Yeah. So that was
any more questions?
Any more
Maybe
questions?
more about Maniac. That was a kind of
Oh,
underground.
Maniac. That was very underground.
Did you know it at the time of the filming that it becomes something like an X-rated classic or whatever?
Not really. No, I'd worked with Joe. I
Yeah,
worked with Joe
three
Spinell
times, I
3
think,
times.
yeah.
I worked with him on. I worked with him first on The Fanatic or the last horror film.
Oh, a Star Crash.
Oh, Star Crash. Yes, sorry, I forgot that with David. Yeah. Yes, Joe was in that. He was. Actually, I tell you what, he was an extraordinary actor, Joe Spinell. Have you ever seen any of his work? He did a lot of. Actually, not only horror. He did. The Godfather, The Rockies, Brubaker, Cruising. He did so many films. He was one of the best character actors.
Maniac was
American.
his kind of personal
It was his
project.
baby.
Yeah.
It was his baby along with Bill Lustig, the director. And it was loosely based on a true happening story called Son of Sam. So it was, and I think for the tiny budget, they did an extraordinary job. They shot it on 16 and blew it up to 32, so it had that really grain,
yeah.
gritty quality. And I think apparently Elijah Wood saw the film and he loved Armenia.
Yeah.
He loved Joe and Armenia. And he was the one who pioneered to do the new one, which I haven't seen.
It's pretty good.
Is it good?
Yes, it's good.
Is it luscious and beautiful? I mean, very
It's
different.
like you are
from-
stabbing people.
Really?
But I think if you're going to remake something, I think you,
It's completely
you have to,
different.
because there's that shot-for-shot remake of a Psycho, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, what
Doesn't
why?
work. Why do it?
Why
Why
do
do
it?
it the same?
Yeah, it-
So that was clever on Elijah's part, wasn't it? To really make it from the killer's point of view. So yeah.
Right, last call, last orders.
Yes.
I actually spent a lot of time in Brighton, and I was wondering
In
what.
Brighton.
Yes, and I was wondering what it was like studying there, and what was
At
your
Brighton
favorite.
Art College. Do you know where that was? It was just near the pavilion.
I know where it is.
You know
I
where
never
it
went there,
is.
but I know where it is. I know.
Oh, so where did you stay when you were in Brighton? Where did you live?
Kind of in one of the side streets near Preston Park.
Oh, you were near
wow.
Preston Park. You know Preston Park Manor? That's where I did my first photographs with that photographer from the art school in that lovely, I did them in the gardens and on the steps of the manor with that wonderful white. Oh, that's so
First time I
spooky.
ever had a photo shoot was in Brighton.
Yeah, really?
Yeah,
Yes.
a friend, down there.
isn't
Weird,
that-
isn't it?
Oh, it's lovely. I love Brighton.
Yeah,
I was
me too.
actually in Rottingdean, which was the little village where Rudyard Kipling did all his wonderful stuff. So I grew up there. Went to a convent.
Oh, wow.
Went to a little convent. I mean, not as a nun, but as a child, student. Yes. I studied.
Yeah, just a sabbatical. As
Yeah,
in,
yes, like sabbatical. Yeah. No, I loved it. I love Brighton. It's like a mini London by the sea. You've got all the
Yeah.
shops. You've got the theatre. You've got
the
the
lanes.
culture. You've got the lanes. Oh my God! I
If you ever,
love
if
the
you
lanes.
ever visit the UK, Brighton, big
It
tick
is.
list.
It is
If,
lovely.
if you're going from London, make time for the trains. Okay.
Yes.
Top tip.
Yeah, it's 55 minutes though, isn't it? Now it used to be much longer.
Yeah.
But it's very beautiful.
That's what everyone came for. Train chair.
And the piers, the kind of iconic piers. One of them's gone. So
Yeah, but it looks amazing now.
It does look like a wonderful
Yeah,
work. You
it's-
see the photographers out
Yeah,
there.
and
And the
every-
sun's
just
going
like-
down. Yeah, no, it does look cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
good.
Last question. So if anyone's got anything,
Nope.
yeah,
That's
you
it.
you guys are very lovely.
That's very sweet, small but very mighty.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you know what to do. Caroline. Isn't that nice?
Thank you so much. That wasn't he? Yeah.
My only job.
That's so nice. Who have you got next?
Who
Who's
have
your
I
next
got
victim?
next?
Is it
That's it.
possible to have a photo here?
What?
Of course, yes, if you want one.
And
Yes.
Tell me who we've got next when I can remember.
I meant to sign because I'm doing it for a charity.
where are you
Oh,
seeing?
Oh yeah.
somewhere I can't remember.
What time is that?
They're all
What time are we on
shaped
here?
down.
12.